Hello everyone, welcome back. If you haven't watched my channel before, I'm Victoria. I talk a lot about bras and fashion and our relationship to those things, as well as the industry and how that kind of relates to us and the products that end up in our hands and how we feel about those products. Generally, when I talk about these things, I am talking about them from a perspective of someone who has interacted a lot with the industry. I worked in a bra shop for several years, but ultimately I am coming at this from the perspective of an outsider. I'm not in the bra industry, I'm not making bras, I'm not selling bras, I'm not designing bras, and so there are a lot of things that I just don't know or can't speak to. Today I'm going to be talking to a couple of people who know a lot about that side of making bras and getting them made that I just don't know about. Deean and Agnes approached me a few months ago wanting to collaborate on something, essentially to be able to offer more education to their customers about bra size and fit and all of that. In talking to them, I felt like there was a big opportunity to be able to provide a lot of education also to my viewers. I know a lot of you are interested in kind of why things are the way they are and how they've ended up this way, and so I was really excited to be able to talk about these things really in depth with Deean and Agnes. So we're going to be talking about fit, and we're going to be talking about the industry and basically what it's like to start a bra company. We're going to be starting from design and sketching and sourcing and all of that good stuff. And then we're going to talk about manufacturing, and then we're going to move into kind of the business side of things and marketing and trademarks and stuff like that. One thing I'm really hoping for this conversation is that it can kind of give more concrete examples of what I mean when I talk about bras being really complicated to make, really specialized, really labor intensive, and how that can contribute to things like price, and how all of the complications that go into making and designing bras are a huge part of why we end up with so many different kinds of bras where different ones fit different people. So we're going to be talking about Amour Caché, which has a few different focuses, and the two really big ones are fit and offering bras to people who the market doesn't traditionally serve. A lot of this revolves around their efforts to make bras that are functional for people who are not post-mastectomy and also people who are post-mastectomy. So we'll talk about the intricacies of that and also just what decisions go into figuring out where you want to fit in the market. They also founded an online publication that's really meant to give a voice to breast cancer survivors and artists and people who wear bras to talk about their experience and how different aspects of life have affected their relationships with bras and their bodies. We're gonna talk about a bunch of stuff. This was really my excuse to get to ask a bunch of really specific technical questions and get a lot of information that I have always wanted to have but haven't had access to in the past. As a disclaimer, I am being paid for this collaboration, but it is primarily a collaboration. I worked with them on the interview. We both contributed a lot of time to the content, but I'm also pretty unclear on DMC law, so I'm going to just be disclosing this as an ad, but there is nothing that I say in this video that I did not decide to say myself. Anything that is scripted was scripted by myself, but almost all of this is just a natural conversation. I have not actually tried their bras. This video is not for me to try and sell you bras or for them to try and sell you bras. It's to try and give you access to information you wouldn't have had before. Normally when brands approach me wanting to collaborate, which is a very loose term, I tend to just brush it off because most of the time it's not to create content that I think is valuable to my viewers or that frankly I'm interested in making. I was really drawn to Deean and Agnes's interest in learning and education and getting into the technical aspects so that they can improve their bras, and then also just listening to people and listening to their customers and the industry to get more of that information. I also really love the amount that they connect with the breast cancer survivor community. They're not just running campaigns during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, that they are doing that, but they are actively working with the community. This is a video that I truly could not have made by myself, and I'm really grateful to Deean and Agnes for being willing to go down this very nerdy interview journey with me, and I'm really excited for you all to see it. So with all that said, let's dive into the conversation with Deean and Agnes, the two co-founders of Amour Caché. Hello guys, thank you so much for joining me. Do you want to start off by introducing yourself and Amour Caché?
Yep, sure. We're Deean and Agnes. We're the two co-founders of Amour Caché. The company makes lingerie for all walks of life. So essentially what we try to do is make bras that fit people well. Like, we're very focused on fit, and we also try to cater to demographics that maybe are on the fringes of what's being catered to right now. So for example, some of our bras can function as lingerie for traditional lingerie lovers, but people who've undergone mastectomies or lumpectomies can also use them. We've integrated unique features from post-mastectomy lingerie into our lingerie so that it's kind of dual function. And we're expanding into maternity wear for the next collection.
First, we just wanted to start with like a lot of sizes, but then we think that like, yeah, already a lot of business are doing like a lot of sizes, and then we think about like what else we can do. And there was like the time that I think I changed my birth control. I have some lumps in my breast, and I was like, oh no, is it like a breast cancer? And I got scared, but it turned out to be nothing. And then we're like, okay, if that were to happen to people that is in their 20s and then that's similar to us, what would they need to do? Because all those like mastectomy bras are very surgical and very sport bras, and I would not want to wear that for the rest of my life. One of us wholesaler is in Australia, and she only sells like breast forms. She just like recommend them to have like find something that have a high gore, and then they can put the breast form in.
What she was finding was that a lot of traditional lingerie with lower, more plunge neckline, they don't cover the prosthesis. We were talking to her about the crystal wireless bra. It's very non-traditional for a post-mastectomy bra. It's very hard to find a post-mastectomy bra with a deep plunge like that. And initially she was a little bit skeptical, which I don't blame her. I think that makes a lot of sense. When we sent her the sample, she was really pleasantly surprised that it worked so well with her breast forms. Because of the way that we've designed the pockets. Like, the pockets still work really well where they're discreet. They'll discreetly hold your breast forms and they're not going to slip out.
So I know that you've also started a publication called L'Amour Zine. I feel like normally when bra brands have any kind of blog or zine like that online, it's mostly just about the bras themselves. But I know that you've taken the approach of talking instead to, people who wear your bras, people who interact with bras. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like deciding to start working on that?
We started L'Amour Zine basically in an effort to showcase the people that we aim to serve, to really put their stories out there and make them feel like they are included in this brand and that we did make this brand for them. Once you actually like get into the breast cancer circles, you start to realize how common it is. A lot of people who are in their 20s, mid-20s, early 20s who've gotten breast cancer and have had surgeries. And the only way that we were able to understand what breast cancer survivors go through in order to design these bras for them was to talk to them. Before we even designed any products, we actually surveyed, I think it was like 400 people to see what kind of bras they liked, what they really look for in a bra. We chose a triangle wireless bra, a full coverage / plunge style, deeper neckline style, a long line, which was a little bit different, and a balconette style, so a little bit more like a demi cup. So those were our 4 basic silhouettes that we started out with. The way that we initially went about it was figuring out from the bras that I've worn before, what components work really well. So for example, our triangle bra has a really high apex, so the stitch goes from the under bust where the wire would be all the way up to the top strap. Something like that really helps to lift and pull breast tissue upwards. So it creates more of like a lifting, rounding effect when you do wear the bra. So after you design, what you would do is select the fabric that goes well with the design. That was when we started looking for fabric manufacturers. The best way to find a fabric manufacturer is visiting them in person, because you'll get to see the fabrics in person, which is really important for lingerie because certain areas need a specific amount of stretch. The cups, you don't want it to be overly stretchy because then they don't really provide much hold for breast tissue. Whereas on the band, you want something that's a little bit more stretchy so there's more give. We have a little bit of background in seamstressing, and we didn't at the time realize how different it would be to make lingerie than it is to make clothes. But we didn't realize A, how many components actually go into a bra, and B, how specific the machine and like the workmanship is. There's basically two different ways that you could go about lingerie manufacturing. The first is to go with a manufacturer that already has their designs and their fabrics, like relationships with suppliers. You really limit yourself to whatever they can offer for you. The second option is riskier because you would need to design everything yourself and most of the times propose. They call it like nominate a supplier nomination. So you would basically like give the contacts of your suppliers to the manufacturers, and then they deal with actually getting the materials dyed, woven in the correct width, and then sent to the manufacturer. We want to be more specialized. We want to stand out a little bit more from the cut and sew market. The best way to do that is to really own our own supply chain from the start all the way to the end. In the first collection that we launched in 2021, every single component of the bra, from the elastics to the lace, even like the underwire shape and everything like that, was sourced by us. Another thing to consider when you are sourcing materials is the feel of it. The softness of materials was something that was really important to us. Like, there's a lot of really beautiful laces that are rigid and they might be scratchy. Maybe if you want rigid, you'd want it to be relatively smooth. Another reason for that is like the t-shirt test. So if you put a t-shirt over, some people prefer to have a smooth bra. Most people, I think, prefer to have a smooth bra so it goes well with things and is a little bit more discreet. The softness of a lot of our accessories was really important. You'd be surprised, but there's like a ton of different levels of felt that you can have. And finally, it was longevity was a really important thing for us. So our bras aren't cheap. They're not insanely expensive, but they're definitely not cheap. So something that we wanted to ensure for our customers is that they last a long time. So from our first collection, there were certain components that we saw that we could improve on. We wanted elastics that were softer and that would last a lot longer. And so that's why we switched suppliers in our second collection to kind of provide all of those benefits that maybe we were lacking from the first collection.
Do you feel like there's a tension between picking materials and components that are as comfortable as possible and then components that are as long-lasting as possible? I feel like the softest bras that I've ever worn, I'll stretch out like that.
I think fabrics that act like that have spandex. So the higher the spandex amount, the stretchier it's going to be, the nicer it's going to feel on your body, but there's definitely an impact. You want something that's really soft and really, really stretchy. You'll find that they like lose their elasticity really fast, so they'll just like give and just be super elastic, or they'll start getting rigid and like they won't stretch. Mesh is like the most probably affected by that.
And we did have a lot of mesh on our first
We had a lot of mesh, and we really love that mesh, but it has its downsides. Flexibility of a wire might feel better on you, but might not perform as well as a really rigid one. Because we really focus on comfort, we try to find a good in-between, but we lean more towards a flexible wire. Also because it's just more accommodating for bodies and different breast shapes to have a flexible wire. They also really impact the way that your bra ends up looking. You could have a triangle-ish looking bra that turns into more of a full coverage bra all of a sudden.
Very, very, very early on of the version of our company, first idea of is to take out the underwire. It's like we have a thing that like
a pillowcase.
A pillowcase that like you can take out the underwire whenever you want, and then you put it back in. Yeah, they laugh at us. That like just like no, this doesn't work. I said just make one.
Yeah, just try it.
But it didn't work.
So after you do sketching and sourcing, then you do placement, fabric placement, which was what I discussed earlier. This process details the Ina bra that we've just launched recently. And the Ina was a little bit unique in that the fabric is a tartan. So we wanted to make sure that it didn't look too messy or chaotic when it was actually on a bra. So something that we tested out was to like actually make the bra cup shape with the tartan fabric or the tartan pattern drawn on paper and turned into sort of like a conical shape with a dart to see how the fabric would look like on an actual bra. It actually looks a lot like that in real life. The other thing that we were really cautious about, this lace is a little bit difficult to work with. Instead of a 4-way or all-way stretch, it was only a 2-way stretch. So we had to lay the fabric in a specific way that was complementary for the cup, but also would be complementary for the band. If you're lucky and you work with a good manufacturer, they'll do something called a pot dye, which is basically like a hand-mixed version of the Pantone shade, and they keep that color for you. You need to tell them what kind of light you're using, And there's also a code for that. We use like D65, and most people in the textiles industry they all work off of D65 anyway.
Yeah, they always like us to send them like a physical thing so they can
Yes.
like, it's easier for them to get a color. But then like when they get the thing, they want to know that like, do you referring to the color that you folded once of the fabric or twice or just like one layer?
Next thing that you want to do is to make a tech pack. The tech pack is basically a comprehensive list of the materials that you want to use, how wide is the fabric so that they know how many units they could lay on the width. It also lets them know the color and the composition. But more comprehensive designs will also use something called a bill of operations, which is a BOO, which basically details like the exact steps for how to construct something. A lot of bras typically have the self fabric, which is the main fabric on the outside, and you'll have mesh on the inside, and then you'll have an elastic at the end. So the order of operations for that is relatively simple, but if you want to make it seamless, is a little bit more difficult to construct. So you have fabric on the outside, elastic on the inside, and then fabric again on the back side. If the manufacturer's never done it before, you might need to detail those steps for their machine operators down the line. And you also want to make sure that you have your drawing in your tech pack, so everyone again is referring to the correct thing. And then finally, you want your SPI, which is stitches per inch. There's a very specific list of codes that detail each stitch type. A lot of lingerie manufacturers, one of the reasons that they can keep the cost so low is that they increase their SPI, which basically means that they're able to run the fabric through the machine much faster. So either they're using a really big 3-step zigzag, or they're really running through the machine quite fast. And those stitches, if you overstretch your bra slightly, you might break a stitch and then you basically have ruined your bra.
How much harder do you think it would be to create a BOO if you didn't have a background in seamstressing already?
You have to rely on the manufacturer, I think,
Yeah.
in that case.
But you never know.
You never know.
Like, I don't know how other people do it, that like if they don't know anything about this at all.
Something that I have heard a lot about is the practice of bra brands bringing in a bra from a competitor and handing it to the manufacturer and just being like, copy this. Have you encountered this in the industry? Like, have you encountered this with other brands, or have you had manufacturers ask you for this or expect you to do this?
So we didn't know that that was like an industry standard for manufacturers to kind of see a design, think that you like designed it off of a prototype that you saw in the market, and then ask you to ship them that sample so that they can basically like deconstruct it and remake it for you.
I don't think it will work, because like if somebody just bring in and then they tell the manufacturer to copy it, but they don't know what is exactly that's good, because fabric is different.
Yeah.
So what that you tell, like say it to the manufacturer and then tell them to copy it, the
Yeah.
manufacturer just can't, because like maybe the bra is good because the fabric itself is not going to be as good as the original one, and then it just keep reminding people how good the original one is.
A lot of the time when people are talking about bras either being too expensive or being like, oh, well, I buy $20 bras and they're bad, so why would I spend more on one? I compare it to shoes. So I feel like people understand the concept that if they buy dance co's, those are going to be shoes that they can wear to work. You can be on your feet for 8 hours in a pair of dance co's, but if you try to do that with a pair of like those flip-flops that are like this thick and just made out of like hard plastic, it's just like not going to happen. In this conversation with Deean and Agnes, we're definitely both coming at this from a perspective that I think most people are not. So I do want to give you a little bit of a primer on fit before we dive more into the fitting section, just so you have an idea of all of the things that end up going into how you actually fit a bra. Let's talk about fit. So in general, I tend to group issues that people have with their bra into 2 different categories. This is really just my own personal distinction, and a lot of people don't approach it in this way, but I find that this is helpful when trying to decide what is an okay compromise for me and what compromise I'm willing to recommend to someone. It's just how my brain makes this distinction, is there are aesthetic and then there's fit issues, and the fit issues are when it comes down to making a bra uncomfortable. making it so it doesn't provide the support that it's supposed to, or it's moving around all day. It's not just when you put it on and look at it, but it's when you're wearing it and not wanting to think about it, and something is happening that is just making it cause you discomfort throughout the day. These are the things where when I'm looking for a bra and how well it fits a certain shape and a certain person, these are things that I won't compromise on. So some examples of this are bras that are either too tight or too loose, a gore that doesn't lay flat to the chest, a wire that doesn't hold all of your breast tissue from the inside all the way out. I have a couple other videos where I talk about fit and how to tell how things are fitting you, but these are the things I always see be the problems when people are like, I hate wearing bras. And it's like, all right, well, let's talk about the one you're already wearing, what's happening with it, and it's because of one of these things. It's always a matter of making sure how tight is the band, because the band is where you're getting all of the support, right? So you don't want it to be too loose, because then it's going to be hiking up in the back, which is going to cause the wires to dig in, because you're not getting that even support. If it's too tight, you're probably just not going to wear it at all. It is absolutely the foundation of the bra. You don't want to let that one go. The next one is the gore, and the gore is the little bit in between the cups, so it's kind of part of the band, but it has its own little name. So the gore needs to lay flat to the chest, and this is another one that I tend to be a stickler on because it can point to so many different issues. So if a gore is too narrow, then one of the things you'll have space in between the breast tissue and the gore. That I think is generally more aesthetic, though it can point to the bra maybe moving around a little more throughout the day, but it's less of an issue. But if it's too wide, then it can start sitting on top of breast tissue, which is always, always, always bad. But a gore floating off of the body can also point to a bra that is not projected enough. The cup isn't deep enough to really capture all your tissue. It really can affect, is this bra actually going to give you support? Is it going to move around throughout the day? The more a bra moves, the more uncomfortable it's going to get. And the next one is the wire. So the wire is where a lot of the actual size of the bra refers to. The wire is what you're talking about when you talk about the letter of a bra. And it's not a distinct length of wire or shape of wire, but that's where you're going to get an idea of the ratio of the length of the band and the wire. If the wire is too short to capture all your breast tissue or too wide, then that points to the bra not being the right size. A lot of people who are more shallow or more full on bottom will buy bras that are too small. Cup size is too small because it means that they can fill out the whole cup. And then vice versa, some people will get ones where the wire goes back too far because they want to be able to wear a bra that maybe isn't projected enough for them. I never recommend this. I don't like it. I don't think it's worth it. It's usually a hard lesson of this bra is not the right shape for this person. So when you look at something like an aesthetic issue, this has to do with how the bra looks on your body and not necessarily how the bra feels on your body. These could be things like, slight overflow from the band in the back or in the back of the armpit, slight overflow in the front of the cup. It can also be the shape of the bra. Maybe it fits you well, but you just don't like how it looks on you. That can be more of an aesthetic kind of issue, like maybe the shape just isn't what you want. This is not to say that these are issues not worth thinking about and considering when buying a bra, but they are things where I tend to think sometimes you're more likely to make one of these compromises if you really love everything else about a bra. That said, some of these are going to be absolute no-goes. For a lot of people, if there's any amount of spillover, absolutely not going to do it. If you don't like the shape, not going to do it. The basic line here is these are issues that affect how it looks, but they do not affect the comfort as you're wearing it, and they do not affect the bra's ability to provide support evenly and comfortably. So in general, that's how I categorize those things, but ultimately if something is affecting your comfort, either your comfort with how it feels or how it looks, then it's always worth addressing. It's really up to each individual person to figure out what compromises they're willing to make. That's just generally how I look at which ones I'm willing to make and which ones I'm willing to kind of at least recommend to people that they can make when making these decisions. So that's all just to give you an idea of all of the different things that you end up having to look at when it comes to creating a size chart and fitting a bra on different people. Different styles all need to be fit differently. Something as simple as one added seam can affect these things. But all of that said, we can get back to talking with Deean and Agnes about their experience in fitting and grading and all that.
It's really cool that you put it as like a fit problem or aesthetic problem. Because I never thought about it. I thought that like, because most people just think that it's a fit problem. I have been touching my armpit when you were talking about it to make sure that I have it or not.
So after we confirm the color, they make the sample. We take a couple fit photos. The bare minimum would be the front, the side profile, 3/4, and then we like to do 2 sides, so the left and the right, and you need to make sure to do the back. Close-up details of certain areas that maybe you want to fix for the second sample. What we typically do is we make sure we put it on the middle hook. We adjust the straps so that it's not digging into the skin, but it's also not flopping off of the shoulders. We do the scoop that you do in bra fittings where you kind of scoop all of the breast tissue from the side to the front, and then we consider that to be like, okay, now you're set to be actually fitted. So a couple things that you would want to look for is if there's overflow on the neckline, it could signify that your cup is too shallow. Maybe the elastic isn't elastic enough. Maybe they've done a specific type of stitch on the neckline that's not suitable. It's not stretchy enough for there. There's not enough give. Or maybe it's just the way they've placed the fabric. Do you think it's worse to have underarm overspill or bust overspill?
So either one is not ideal, obviously, but for me, I always expect there to be some sort of overflow in the back of the armpit. But as soon as it starts setting onto breast tissue, I'm like, that is not just a preference, but that's actually going to come down to a comfort issue. The shape and the cut of a bra is always, I think, the trickiest part of fitting because it's something that manufacturers don't tend to communicate. I don't know if it's because they don't know how or they just don't want to because it's not like standard, but when they're not communicating who these bras can fit on, you end up having people think these bras are completely different sizes, even though, you know, they're the same size. They would fit the person with the same like root and band, but it's just like the depth or the shape of it just isn't going to be right. Like if you're looking at like a 32D in panache versus one in something like the Notori Feathers, which is a very shallow bra, they're not going to fit the same people, even though they're the same size.
I think finding the model is also important because like the model can say that like, oh, I am a 38D, but then you don't know what brand they're wearing, so you have to like see them first, measure them, and see like what kind of bra size they're gonna wear in our brand's size chart. Otherwise, you're gonna get someone that is like completely different. They always insist that their size is correct, but you never know until you measure them.
I think that models are usually wearing the wrong bra size, just like everyone else is. Because I've seen tiny models call themselves like a 36A or B or something, and I'm just like, there's no way.
We were lucky enough to work with an agency that does lingerie quite a bit, so they were really familiar, and when they provided their model specs to us, they would specify the brand.
So when you were developing your size chart, were you trying to build everything from scratch?
It kind of goes back into the manufacturing depending on which country they are and what kind of customers they have before. If they only have like Asian customer, it'll be very hard for them to like use the same size or to grade it the same size. But if they have worked with like European brands before, US brands before, Australian brands before, they have much bigger sizes that they know how to grade. And then it also depends on like the sample maker if she knows, because she's supposed to be like instructing all other people.
I think the best thing is finding a manufacturer or a sample maker that's really open to ideas, and of course like has a lot of experience where they've seen a lot of different markets. So what Agnes was touching on before was like a lot of brands that you might find in Asia, their extra small might be an American extra small, for example, and their large might be like a medium,
smaller, not
medium.
even medium. I'm wearing large in Asia or extra large.
After you make the first sample, and it's very rare that the first sample is approved, so typically you end up doing a second or even a third sample, it's decently approved, like you're 75 to 85% there, you start going into grading. Grading essentially is just you choose a couple sizes in certain ranges that you want to fit on a fit model. On the screen is an example of a few of our bras that were fit on different fit models in different sizes. We do a 32C, 34B, 32 double D, to name a few. When you start doing grading, that's when you really see certain problems emerge. In grading from a 32 band size to a 38 band size may have worked with stretchy material, but with a more rigid material or in that material composition, it might not work anymore. And you also need to make sure that the straps are okay. From our first collection, we were getting feedback that our straps, the allowance for our strap adjustment wasn't long enough. Moving forward, we started focusing a lot also on the amount of adjustability in the back strap. Aside from that, you also want to see how the model feels in the bra. So we often ask our models, like, is it comfortable? Do you feel like it's poking anywhere that maybe we can't visually see, but you know it's not supposed to feel like that? That's one of the most challenging and time-consuming parts of sample making, or like the whole sample iteration process, is you need to make sure you have the right models in the correct sizes. You need to allow some time for them to actually make the first grading batch, assign time for all of these models, and make sure that you take photos, you write descriptions and comments, talk to the models. Sometimes if the bra is really unique, like very different than something we've done before, we also give it to the model to wear for the whole day and see how she really feels in it throughout the day. One of our styles that's coming out really soon is quite unique, and the underwire in the middle doesn't really meet a cup. Something like that can possibly induce like chest poking or pains throughout the day. So we wanted our model to wear it for the whole day, go about her daily activities to see how it would work in real life. And if it was comfortable, then great, we can proceed. But if it's not comfortable, we need to revisit whether it's the materials or the underwire that's causing the issue, or if it's the way the underwire is shaped. Sometimes they are bent more inwards towards the body on the ends, which is not suitable for a design like that. We had to resample, and we cross our fingers and hope that if we change the underwire casing material to a more felt, like a thicker felt, that it would solve the problem, and it did. But we wouldn't have learned that information if we didn't let our fit model try the bra for the entire day. They remake the bras. In lingerie, you have something called points of measures, POM, which is how you and the manufacturer decide you want to identify every single point on the bra. So for example, something from where the underwire ends all the way to the top strap, that length might be designated as A, but you would need to specify and agree with your supplier or your manufacturer if you're taking it from the inside of the underwire or the outside of the underwire. Even a small centimeter will make a big difference. Once you approve the grading according to the POM sheet, then you're ready to move forward to manufacturing. Once they do manufacturing, there's something called TOP, top of the line, where you randomly select off of the line certain sizes that you want to inspect for quality to make sure that, again, they match that grading POM sheet that you had previously. The stitching code is right, the ISO code is right, the SPI is correct, all of the materials used are correct, the color is fine, all the components are there, and finally, if the dimensions are matching your grading sheet, then you typically approve the TOP samples, you continue in mass production, and finally you have QC. Quality control for us is pretty rigorous, and this is another thing that you might want to discuss with your manufacturer. What's really helpful is like giving them a list of things that you absolutely like won't tolerate. That might result in a chargeback for you. For us, for example, excess underwire casing, because it tends to run around a lot and you won't get as much support on the underarm area. So that's something that we're becoming more and more strict on. And another example is leftover thread. If they don't snip it off close to where the stitching ends, it looks really messy. So we try to keep it around 2 millimeters is what we try to do, but it's not easy. So we'll excuse it if it's a little bit more like a centimeter, a half a centimeter. But if we were ever to receive something where there's a huge string or huge thread left over, we would have to have a conversation with our manufacturer about it to make sure it doesn't happen in the future. They don't want chargebacks either. So they take really good care in making sure that what they produce is good. So that's something that we've really appreciated about our manufacturers.
It's funny how little stuff like that can affect the perceived value of an item so much, especially with things that people are already convinced aren't worth the amount of money that they cost.
I think the toughest thing for us would be our sliders. With our first collection, we manufactured it in China, where English is not their first language. Our sliders say Amour Caché, Amour on the top and then Caché on the bottom. But because they weren't familiar with the language, a few of our bras had the slider flipped upside down. But that's become less of a problem now because we've switched our manufacturing to Malaysia where they're able to read English. So they're more aware of the fact that the slider has to be in a very specific position when they're sewing.
At first, we thought we can sort out everything ourselves. We realized that like if we don't set up the company right from the beginning, and if we don't set up the book and the accounting right from the beginning, everything is going to be wrong. It's not very expensive to hire a lawyer that will set up the company for you.
To register a brand properly is to make sure that you've registered your trademark properly. Figure out which countries you want to register a trademark. Otherwise, people can easily see a niche brand, really like the style of it, copy it, take your brand name, and start selling it and make a profit off of you, which is, it was really scary to us that somebody could do that.
So when in the process of this very long trademark thing should people be getting a website?
It was a bit hard because it kind of goes back to our trademark that you don't actually need a trademark to get a website. Trademark kind of takes sometimes be up to a year. If you get your trademark approved and then you get your domain, it kind of takes a longer time to do it. We had another name, but then found out that it's already registered or similar name that have been registered. So we have to get up that domain name, and then we have to change to another one. I don't remember how many we tried. It doesn't need to be the first thing that you do. But trademark does. Trademark is the first thing that you probably need to do.
If you want to take a gamble, I think we got our domain before we got our trademark, so it was a little bit risky. But if you want to reduce your risk, then just try to get a domain that's not overly expensive in the name that you really, really want, and take a chance on that. I mean, if you're getting the trademark first and then the domain, then maybe it's worth it for you to pay for the domain because it's so secure and you're so sure on the name. But if it's the reverse, I would say don't spend so much on the domain. Try to get as cheap of an alternative as possible, and then get your trademark approved.
Another hard thing for us was to find a 3PL. Are we going to ship it ourselves, maybe from other countries, or are we shipping it worldwide? So for apparel, we always have it packed nicely, wrapped in the tissue papers, and then put it in the bag, and then have a sticker on it. We also have our own box that is in our color, have our brand on it. Not every fulfillment center is willing to do it. And it's a relationship that you need to build with fulfillment centers. We're not selling the bra for cheap. We want our customer to have a good experience when they get it. Try to be environmental friendly. So we do see the boxes where it's coming from. Is it recyclable? In the future, to make it even more sustainable, we're gonna make it as an envelope, but it's still gonna be in our color, in our brand, and then the design is also from us. So they still get the brand experience.
Something that we've noticed is the dimensions of our current box are so wide and big. It's very it feels very glamorous when you're opening, which is good. But it also means that the shipping cost that's imposed on our customers is slightly higher. And having something a little bit more condensed would just be more efficient for the customers, for the environment. It'd just be better for everyone.
When it comes to getting real people in the bras, how do you go about addressing feedback as well as things that you might be able to incorporate to improve on your designs?
Agnes does a lot of our customer service.
Oh, right, I do. It's just because because every time that they talk to us, sometimes they want exchange, sometimes they want to return, and then most of the time I will just reply and ask them that say hello to them first, and then ask hey, is there a reason? Because I know that not everything is perfect from our side. There is a reason why they want to return. They either don't like it personally, or they have like something that doesn't fit well that might be an improvement in our desk collections. I like talking to them, and most of the time they'll tell us, they're very honest, and then they tell us that like, oh, why it doesn't fit. I mark them down. I have an Excel that I mark them down, like all of it, that like why it doesn't fit, but they always like go into like back to what Deean said, is like the allowance on the straps issues that like we already improved on the next collections. But it was good to know that like some people do have problems with it. Some of them actually comment or like left a review on like how much they love the bra. Where every time they would get it, we're so excited that like our work have been approved by somebody, a stranger.
Honest feedback is always good. There was one case when we first, I think it was a few months into selling our first collection, the Anna style was selling really, really well, but there was one specific size that we kept getting returns of. And there weren't that many returns. I think it was around 3. Their feedback was all the same. It was a fit issue. Regardless of how many units we had left, we just didn't want to run the risk of putting it out there and having people buy it and it not fitting well for them. So we pulled the entire size off of the racks, and then we inspected the grading sheet to see how we would make sure that this doesn't happen again. And if we were ever to make the Anna again, which we have considered, it would have to be an improved version of the grading that we did have before. Returns, feedback, it's all helpful, but it takes like an additional step to admit that you're not perfect and that things that you produce aren't always going to be perfect. And it also takes a step of like asking what exactly didn't work for you. Not everyone is willing to do that because it requires a little bit of vulnerability, but it's very helpful, and I would highly recommend for like any small business, especially in apparel, to do it. You'll learn a lot from your customers. There's also like the difficult side of customer service where people may leave some really nasty reviews and they're online forever, and they might not even be telling the truth sometimes, and you can do everything in your power to rectify it as much as possible. People will still leave those comments, so the only thing you can do is like, don't delete the comment. We never delete our comments. We just respond as best as we can to resolve the problem. That's our main focus, is like problem resolution and improvement for the future, rather than like hiding information or hiding comments and reviews. I think we also have the benefit of like, well, I don't know if it's a benefit, but our design process, like our iteration process, is very long, and it takes a year to make a collection for us, which is something that like we do want to shorten with time and with experience. But at the same time, like, you really have no excuse to not listen to feedback if your process is that long, because you have all that time really to make a change. We have to listen to feedback.
Do you feel like you found yourself stepping into marketing as well as kind of the rest of this?
I would say marketing is really, really challenging for a small brand. We've faced a lot of challenges, and we're still trying to figure out like what works best for us. So for example, we were doing some Facebook ads at one point, but when certain algorithms changed, it means that we really have to like reevaluate the whole thing and see if it even works. It's not as reliable of a constant as we would hope for it to be. As a small brand, we're still trying to think of ways that we can be crafty about it. Maybe finding certain influencers who really care about the certain things that we care about. We recently got in touch with a photographer who, when we told her our story, like our brand origin and everything, she really connected with it. If there's a personal connection and like understanding of story, it makes it more relatable.
Because we thought that like all influencers work, but it's not. It's like the influencer that actually get what you're doing. I don't know how some of it are successful and some of it are not. Maybe if they care about us, then they also care about their followers.
Influencer marketing is so interesting because it seems like the size of a following should pretty directly correlate to how much engagement you're gonna get from some kind of promotion, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I think that was something that really stood out to us, like when we found your videos. It was so honest, and it was like refreshing to hear some honesty in the industry, and I think we really relate to that kind of thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I feel like I don't have a horse in the race, so I don't know why I would need to lie for them or try and help them with their brand or whatever. When it comes to education, it's just the more straightforward it is, the easier to understand and the more clear it is that this is coming from a place of this is just how it is and not me trying to sell some idea of something.
The influencers that tend to like really leave a mark on us or really care about our brands in the end, they have a certain honesty about them too. Like they're not going to talk about any brand that they don't really connect with or care about. When you find that sweet spot, they're more inclined to post you more. We've had influencers and models who said like, I don't want commission. I don't like you guys as a brand, as a business, take the money and like grow your business. If anything, give me a discount code for my follower. That means so much to us. It's not the money, but it's just like the fact that they trust us so much, I think means a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the next thing I'd like to know is what is coming up for you and what are you excited about that's coming up next?
We're pretty excited for the next couple days. So we're in Paris for a textiles expo. And it'll be our first one ever. It's called Interfilier. And I'm pretty sure some of our suppliers are actually going to be there, so it'll be nice to say hello to them. To touch on that, we also have 3 new styles that we'll be releasing. So we just released the Ina, and we'll have a nursing bra, and then finally we have this one style that's a little bit more for every day. I think it's very smooth. It fits very well. It's a little bit of a t-shirt bra, but still using kind of translucent materials. So we're coming out with 5 different colors, a red, a blue, 3 nude shades, so a lighter, a medium, and a dark skin tone. That's something we're really excited about.
We're finally together in person because we haven't seen each other for like 2 years. And like while business is like pretty cool when you can do it from apart, but like when you're together you have more time to brainstorm ideas, and then like you can literally like you don't need to wait for some time and then wait for the other person to respond, and then just like do it. Think about a longer plan or like what else we're gonna do. And also like this video coming out is also very exciting. And then we're gonna have a lot of photo shoots with all the models. All this and jet lag is also exciting because I haven't had jet lag for such a long time. 3 years.
All right, that is all I have for you as far as that conversation goes. Again, I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope you did too. And I really want to thank Deean and Agnes again, not only for having this conversation with me, but approaching me to have this conversation and being willing to be open and honest about their experience. I'm going to be including a few breast cancer awareness and education groups in the description that Deean and Agnes have recommended to me. So if the story is something that you connect with, I hope that there are a lot of different ways that you can access it and connect to it and provide or get any support that you feel like you need. Some of the stuff we spoke about is already on their website. Some of it is coming soon, so I encourage you to just take a look if there's something you're interested in. As always, please feel free to ask me any questions and let me know if there are other things that you would like to see and other little rabbit holes you'd like me to be able to go down. I, again, really loved making this video and I would love to make more kind of in-depth dives like this in the future. So with all that said, thank you all for watching and I will talk to you next time. Bye.